Growing a business is kind of tricky right now. Supply chains are squeezed, tariffs and trade policies are dynamic, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. You need clarity to come out on top. Without it, you risk falling behind. If only you could hop in the DeLorean and see the future, right? Thankfully, there's NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite has real-time forecasting to help you move ahead with confidence. This is your AI-powered business management suite and the #1 cloud ERP. Trusted by over 42,000 businesses, NetSuite brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. And with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. The perfect product launch. It's the goal for every brand marketer. High heat, fast sellout, and fans posting recipes like trophies. What do Sydney Sweeney's soap drop, Taylor Swift's tickets, and your next launch have in common? Well, they're not bought, they're bragged about. Fanfare turns your drop into a moment. Fanfare cues real fans, blocks bots, and builds launch experiences worth screenshotting. Want hype without the heartbreak? Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook with our proven success formula and make your next launch unforgettable at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, fanfare.io/playbook. Hey, I get it. You've worked really hard to build up your business and it's doing great. So great that you need help now. The most important thing for your business is to hire the right people to support it. So how can you find amazing candidates quickly? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. And with Sponsored Jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, Sponsored Jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. And it's one of the largest databases of job seekers, too, giving business owners access to a wide range of candidates. And one of the things I love most about Indeed is the job alerts feature. I get notified when new candidates apply. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/smartpassive. Just go to Indeed.com/smartpassive right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/smartpassive. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Hey, have you ever watched a video and right in the beginning, they're in the middle of laughing for whatever reason? Yeah, it's always really weird, right? Like, what are you laughing about? I swear it's staged, just like this one. Guys, thanks so much for being here. This is session 261 of the Smart Passive Income Podcast. My name is Pat Flynn. You are awesome. Let's roll.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. He dreams about acting in a musical at least once a month. Pat Flynn.
Still using a copy-paste website? Break the template trap with Framer. Whether you're overwhelmed by traditional site builders or frustrated with cookie-cutter designs, Framer gives you the freedom to create a site that's professional, polished, and uniquely yours. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. It's free to start, allowing you to browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something on your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, parallax scrolling, scroll animations, looping animations, and much more in seconds. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting, generating starter layouts, and can even translate your entire site to any language. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of pro on the house. That's framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. Do you know the secret to businesses that are scaling faster than ever? They're using Upwork to tap into a diverse pool of skilled freelancers across various industries. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts who are ready to help you take your business to the next level. I've personally used Upwork myself and can vouch for it. Posting a job on Upwork is easy. With no cost to join, you can register, browse freelancer profiles, get help drafting a job post, or even book a consultation. From there, you connect with freelancers that get you and can easily hire them to take your business to the next level. Upwork makes the entire process easier, simpler, and more affordable with industry-low fees. Post a job today and hire tomorrow with Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help you grow your business. That's Upwork.com. Again, Upwork.com. Hey, thank you so much for joining me today in this session of the Smart Passive Income Podcast. I'm really excited, and actually this is a very, very important episode. This is with somebody who I hired to help me with SEO, or search engine optimization, which is a very important skill, but also a very difficult one to master because it's always changing, right? The environment in Google and getting rankings and keywords and all that stuff, what's working, what's not working anymore, it's always changing. And I recently came across some issues with my own site. And so I hired this person. His name is Sam McRoberts from voodoomarketing.com. That's VUDU marketing.com. And he ran an SEO audit for me. And I was really excited because the results that I got back, I mean, literally pages of information we put to good use, and we're actually starting to see results already, which is really cool. So I wanted to bring Sam on just to chat about SEO, to talk about some of the things that I was working through, and also just give you a lot of information up front in terms of, okay, well, what should we be looking out for? What are some of the big mistakes that people are making who are building websites who want to get ranked? And that's hopefully everybody everybody listening to this. I hope you want higher rankings in Google because that's like the holy grail, right? We are getting free organic traffic from people who are very targeted and specific. And so if you can focus on SEO, which can get very complicated, but we've sort of decomplicated it here for you, or made it a lot easier to consume, hopefully. But the interview went well, and I look forward to sharing it with you right now. So here we go. Sam McRoberts from voodoomarketing.com. What's up, everybody? I'm so happy to welcome Sam McRoberts from voodoomarketing.com. That's VUDUmarketing.com. Sam, welcome to the SPI podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Pat. Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very thankful that you're taking time today because we've actually spent a little bit of time together before this call because I hired you to help me with an SEO audit. And I'm super thankful because the report that you gave me and my team was incredibly useful, and we are actually putting into action a lot of the suggestions that you had to help increase the search engine rankings for the site and just make it more fine-tuned SEO-wise so we can get more organic traffic. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for that.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and so before we get into SEO and what people listening can do to help increase their search engine rankings and get more organic traffic, I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you got into this. What was Sam McRoberts doing before helping people with SEO, and then kind of lead us into where you're at today?
Yeah, it was a long, circuitous route. I started helping my mom with an eBay business in the late 90s. So learned a little bit about writing good titles and descriptions and, what passed for SEO at the time, which was really like stuff keywords on your website, get links from anywhere, any forum. Started building websites around the same time. And then over time, that led into working at a small web design / SEO agency and into a bigger agency and then in-house and on from there. But just over the years, I'd get more and more into SEO. And I found that playing that game of chess with Google, what is it they want to see? Where do I think they're going to be going? Why are they looking at this thing? How can I get ahead of it? Was really, really enjoyable and intriguing, and just kind of spiraled down that rabbit hole.
That's crazy. I couldn't imagine that because much like social media, things are changing all of the time. How do you stay on top of what's happening? How do you know what's working or not?
Yeah, so I think a lesson you can learn from negotiation, right, is if you want to have a good negotiation, understand the person on the other side of the table. Same thing goes with SEO. If you understand Google's core motivations, how they make money, how they plan to make more money in the future, you can understand really what SEO boils down to. So for any given query, right, someone's going to a search engine, they're typing in something, they're asking a question, and Google's in the business of giving them the best possible answer. So if you understand how Google decides what that best possible answer is, the rest is, I won't say easy, but easier.
Right. So this may be a loaded follow-up question, and I think it's coming, but how do we know what Google wants to see?
Sure. So you can The easiest way, right? So let's say you want to rank for passive income. Go to Google and see what's showing up there. And by looking at the sites that are ranking on the top page, you have a really good idea of what type of content and what type of sites that Google thinks are relevant for that. And then you can start using different tools to dig into the underlying metrics behind those businesses. And then alongside that, Google is at least partially transparent about the types of things they look at.
Mm-hmm.
They change a lot over time. They don't say everything, but they say enough to kind of nudge you in the right direction. And then there's tons of people in the SEO industry who are constantly running tests and tossing out useful information as they find it.
That's cool. So you sort of have an insider view along with your other SEO sort of colleagues in terms of, experiments that are running, things that are working, things that aren't.
Exactly. And,
Cool.
depending on the type of sites you're working on and the scale, right? If you have access to a multi-billion page site, you get to run experiments that very few people get to run and see when things really work and just how well, even if Google says it shouldn't work, which is fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. So let's take, I want to walk people through the process that you did to help audit my site. So I knew that I had some improvements that could be made. We made a lot of improvements in 2016 related to the design and the workflow and the sort of navigation through the site and whatnot. But there was one thing that sort of stayed the same, if not kind of went down as a result of that, and that was the search engine rankings and also the organic traffic. That was obviously the opposite direction we wanted to go. So that's why my team and I discussed this, and we wanted to hire somebody, and I got a great recommendation from Neil Patel for Sam McRoberts and Voodoo Marketing here. So I'm very happy to have been working with him. And obviously, like I said earlier, the reports were fantastic. So we're putting things into place. But I would love to know, what are the things that you do? What's that checklist you go through when, for example, I hired you? Like, what were the things that you were looking at? And perhaps even along with that, what were some of the suggestions that you made so that I think people, if they hear this on the other end, they might be able to kind of follow along and perhaps do a high-level sort of similar audit on their own?
Sure. So my first pass is to do a crawl of the site. So I use a tool called Screaming Frog. There are a bunch of different tools that can do this. Like you could do a basic crawl using something like Xenu, Xenu, or a more advanced and expensive crawl with something like Deep Crawl. But Screaming Frog is my favorite. It's relatively inexpensive. It's like $150 for a 1-year license. But you can punch in a URL, and it goes through, uses a little piece of software, much like Google does, to comb through the whole site.
Mm-hmm.
Follows everything link to link, extracts data about the site, and then pulls it into a tool that lets you basically slice down the site the same way that Google would, right? How many pages are on the site? Does it have good title tags? What do the URLs look like? How do things connect together? Are pages loading quickly? And it helps you to, find those gaps. So that's my first pass. From there, it's using a ton of other tools to slice down into. There are 3 main areas really that impact where you rank, how well you do in terms of SEO. Mm-hmm. And those are on-page keyword-centric factors. So whether a keyword is used in your title tag or whether your content is well-written and keyword-focused. You have technical SEO elements. So anything related to the code on your site and your server, how fast your pages are loading, if there are any sort of errors that Google might hit as it goes through your site, like broken links. And then the last piece of the puzzle is linking in social signals. So are people sharing your site? Are they talking about you on social media? Are they linking to you? Are you getting links from high-profile sites, authoritative sites, sites that are topically relevant for you, right, in the same industry? And those are the 3 main buckets of SEO. And so I have a lot of different tools and processes that dig deep into each of those 3 buckets.
Right. And I'm not going to ask you to go through each of those in terms of what tools you use. And I'm not expecting everybody to get, who's listening to this, to go out and start buying a bunch of tools, because I don't think that's something people need to do, at least right away. But what I do want to understand is, what are some of the most common mistakes that you're finding? So, you have a bunch of clients, and I know there's a lot of websites that you keep track of as well. What are some big common mistakes that people are making that would really sort of make an impact on their SEO?
Sure. One of the most common that I stumble across, and one of the easiest to fix if you have somebody technical available, is page load speed, and alongside it, mobile usability. So Google is putting a lot more emphasis into mobile, and a huge factor in terms of mobile usability is just how fast a page is loading. There's been tons of studies over the years on the impact of improving page load speed and its effect on conversions and bounce rates. But it seems like Google's taking that really seriously. So if your page is loading in your site, or any specific page on the site is loading in more than, say, 2 to 3 seconds at this point, it's slow. And Google's almost certainly demoting you, like actively, for other sites that load faster. So that's one typically easy piece of low-hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. And fixing it can be as simple as installing the right WordPress plugin and getting it configured.
Are there any WordPress plugins that you'd recommend? I would be hesitant to say, hey guys, go and download this plugin, because it's obviously dependent on a number of other things, especially with WordPress. It's what version do you have, and then obviously what themes are on it, and plus what other plugins are on there, kind of messing with everything. A lot of times I've found it could just be 1 or 2 plugins that kind of ruin the whole thing, because it just slows down everything depending on how it loads versus everything else. And so, I guess what would be the best way to, I guess you had mentioned just work with a developer or somebody on your team, hopefully, who knows how to do that. If somebody doesn't know how to do that, though, what would you suggest they do?
So the first pass is to, figure out what your page load speed actually is. And there are a lot of different ways to do it, but they each have different pros and cons. Mm-hmm. So I would say your first pass would be to look in your own Google Analytics data, if you have it. And under the behavior section, there's a page speed timing tab, and it'll show you on average how long it's taken for your pages to load. So if you plug in there and it's slow, you have some sort of issue, but not necessarily what. If you're using WordPress, one of the most common plugins is probably W3 Total Cache. Mm-hmm. It's relatively easy to set up. There are a lot of guides out there, and it will at least get you a good chunk of the way there for some of the more basic issues. There are a couple others like WPMU Dev. They have a plugin called Hummingbird and another one called WP Smush that also helps speed things up. Mm-hmm. But usually it boils down to images. Like, are you loading a lot of really large images and a lot of images per page? And are you pulling in a lot of JavaScript files? So if you have like 10 different analytics software and tracking things on your site, it's absolutely slowing you down. There's no way to avoid it when you're doing lots and lots of external calls like that.
Yeah. And then the other thing you mentioned, mobile. I know that there was recently an announcement or some sort of new algorithm change related to mobile. I think if you could explain what that was a little bit more in detail, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it just basically means that, hey, if your site isn't mobile responsive, you're getting deranked, or not deranked, but you're just losing SEO value.
Yeah, so there's been a few. Over the last, I'd say 2 years, Google's had at least 3 separate updates where they've dialed up the importance of mobile speed and usability. Mm-hmm. But I believe the most recent, and I think it hit recently or it's coming out shortly, is a penalization for sites that do takeover pop-ups on mobile. So if you have a full page pop-up that covers up all of your content before somebody can get to that, Google is supposedly actively penalizing that. Although I've heard, hit and miss reports on whether that's happening or not.
I see. Okay, cool. So page load time, important, obviously mobile responsiveness, and most themes that, maybe not most, but more the more current themes that you can get access to, for example, on WordPress through sites like StudioPress and whatnot, and even, lead pages and tools like that. They're usually coming with versions that all have mobile responsiveness or mobile versions of them, which is great. In terms of tools, though, I do want to talk about tools. You'd mentioned one already, which I think most people have or have access to, and that is Google Analytics. That's going to give you some good insights on kind of how things are running on your website and where traffic's coming from and whatnot. But I also know that if I were to try and check to see what keywords I'm ranking for and some information about that and sort of click-through rates for those keywords, Google Analytics isn't actually the right tool for that. There's another tool that's still free to use, and that's Google Console, which used to be called Google Webmaster Tools. Is this a tool that you would say is sort of a prerequisite for having a website, or mandatory, Google Console, that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Google Search Console, getting that set up, it provides you with a lot of technical data, and not just the keywords and click-through rate, but it'll tell you if Google's running into crawl errors on your site. It'll give you some insight into typical page load speed and how much bandwidth Google is willing to spend on your site over a given period. Mm-hmm. There's data in there on whether or not Google's seeing any sort of spammy signals coming into your site, if they think you've been hit with malware. There's a ton. They have data in there on who's linking to you, which domains, which pages. So I'd say it's an excellent resource. Depending on the site, a lot of people don't configure it correctly. So if you have multiple subdomains on your site, so www.smartpassiveincome or courses.smartpassiveincome, each of those has to be claimed separately inside of Search Console. And then there's a difference also between HTTP or HTTPS. And so if you have different versions, you also have to claim those. And you'll see different slices of data under each different piece.
Got it. Yeah. And so if I'm in Google Search Console, I mean, there's a lot here. It's very overwhelming, I think, especially for those who are just starting out. Where would I go to get the best information? After, obviously, I set it up and I give it time to sort of collect this data. Where would you suggest one go in here, and what kinds of things can they pull out from this? I mean, I think the most useful thing for me would be search analytics. And so I can go in, for example, and enable position for a lot of the keywords. And I can see, I'm getting a lot of clicks for my name and the title of my website. But then there's one here, affiliate marketing. And that's a great term. But I also see that even though I'm getting 2,400 clicks per month, I'm at a position of 7.7, which is quite far down the results page. But that gives me a huge indicator of, wow, if I can improve the position of this particular keyword, then I can get way more clicks, because this one is getting more clicks than many other of the sort of non-branded keywords. So that's how I use this tool, or one way that I use this tool. Are there any other things that people can do to gain some good insight on sort of what actions to take next from here, beyond the obvious, like, oh, here's a warning or a crawl error?
Yeah, actually, so that's a really good use, going in there and looking for those deltas. So the difference between how many people are searching and how many people are clicking. So if you find something where you're barely on page 2 and it's getting a ton of impressions but not a lot of clicks, that would absolutely be a spot to dig into. Inside the Search Analytics report, you can also dig into pages, which is also really useful. So you can see, oh, hey, look, it looks like 5 or 10 of my pages are driving 90% of my traffic. Like, what can I do to focus on just those 5 or 10 pages? Could I link to them better internally? Could I get more links from them for those pages externally? That's a really good place to start. And again, some low-hanging fruit. Just inside this one report, though, you can slice down pretty deep. You can get device data. You can get country data. You can see web search versus image search versus video search. And I mean, I think you could spend a tremendous amount of time in that one report. I would say the next most important one to dig into is crawl errors. So
crawl errors, you said, right?
Yep. Left-hand side, there's a crawl menu, and right under that, crawl errors.
Got it.
So this will tell you there are different types of errors. So like a server error is, the server didn't load, a page wouldn't even come up. There's soft 404s. So like the page shows up, but the actual content on the page is the same thing you'd see on an actual broken page. And then not found is probably the most common bucket of errors. And basically, from somewhere, Google arrived at a page on your site that doesn't actually exist. And in this case, for not found errors, a lot of times people will mislink to you externally, mention your site, get a spelling, get one letter wrong in the link they used. And so there are potentially hundreds or even thousands of links pointing at your site to dead pages. So going through here and setting up redirects for those broken pages can sometimes be a really big win.
Got it. Okay, that's great. That's super handy. Thank you for that. So you talked about 3 sort of different categories that you look at on one of the first passes. So on-page keyword-related things, for example, having keywords in the title tag, and also having it be focused within the content itself. Obviously, creating great, valuable content, quality content there too. Then code and server related things, so we talked about this already, mobile, page load speed and whatnot, and errors, as you just mentioned. You just shared a great way to find them using Google Search Console. And then linking and social. This is another one I want to talk about, especially social. How does Google or kind of what's our goal here for these posts related to social? Like, is it really that much of a factor to have people tweet our posts and share them on Facebook, or like, and then how, obviously there are ways to encourage that, but does this mean we have to display that number on our particular page? Or I'm trying to understand more about kind of what exactly Google's looking for here related to social.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the most hotly debated subsets in SEO is, does social play a role, and if so, what? and whether it's just correlation or causation. So Google has unequal amounts of data across different platforms, right? They're able to get, say, maybe more data from Twitter than they are from Facebook. They have some data from their own platform, Google Plus, which I don't think anyone actually uses. And then there's, other social data sources popping up all the time. So Google has an unequal amount of information across the different platforms. But I think in as much as they're able to get it, they would be looking for engagement related signals and influencer related signals, right? Hey, this person, like I know who this entity is, right? They have this site. It links to it from their Twitter bio. I know that they're consistently talking about this subject. They have 1 million followers. If they mention something, that should probably have some weight. Versus random person in random country with no followers mentions something, maybe that shouldn't have any weight. So I think they're probably using some version of PageRank, just understanding who's an influencer, who's authoritative, who isn't, and then who's mentioning what, and trying to tie that together to some degree. But how much of a ranking factor, it's hard to say. I think a lot of it also comes from the fact that if you get a lot of social play, you're also likely to get a lot of mentions in blogs, links, that sort of thing.
Okay, so it's like a long tail kind of effect of the social aspect.
Exactly. Cool. And then, of course, Google's looking at other signals. So like if somebody does a search, what they click through in the search results tells Google a lot. So if somebody has seen you on social or follows you on social and then does a search and sees you there and clicks, it's another signal.
So they actually pay attention to the words that people are typing in versus where they're landing. That didn't used to be as important, sort of relevance. I know that that's been sort of a thing that's at least over the past number of years has become more important. So even in terms of the sites that are linking to you, either you're going to get more benefit from a site that's related to your site versus sort of a random one. And I think that's smart. I think that makes complete sense. And I remember back in the day, I used to kind of do my sort of effort to game Google and just sort of pick up and buy other sites that were random and then link them to my websites and stuff. And, that worked for a while, but obviously Google's making changes to stop that.
Yeah. And I mean, in some cases that can still work, but only where that sort of acquisition and redirect serves the user. So if you buy a site that's really closely related to you and you redirect the content to content on your site that is really closely related to that original content, from Google's perspective, you just did their searchers a favor. You help them to find something useful that's a close match to what they were looking for. But if you focus on podcasts and business and you buy an old Viagra site and redirect that, you're just asking for trouble.
Are there any other tools that are helpful for somebody who's, at the beginning phases, or maybe they've had their business for a while, but they just haven't really taken SEO seriously? Are there any even free tools that one could use to sort of dive into to what's going on even more?
Yeah, so you can get a fair amount of data for free out of a tool like SEMrush. You can get data on who's advertising around keywords, how many keywords a specific site ranks for. And there's a lot of that data that you can at least see the top level data for free. If you want more detailed data, they make you pay. But if you're just trying to look at a few different competitors or your own site and get some insight into what you're ranking for or not, that's a good first pass. You can also get some good data for free out of Moz. So they've got a tool called Open Site Explorer that will show you how many people are linking to your site, what they consider the trust and authority level of your site is.
Nice.
Yeah, there are a bunch. For keyword research, there's a site called Answer the Public. And that looks at basically you pump in a keyword and it gives you all the questions that people are asking that surround that keyword based on just search query data. So you type in business and it may pull up something like, how do I start a business? Which businesses are the best to start? Where do I learn about starting a business? All of these questions that people might ask. And that can help you to...
I'm on there now. This is awesome. I've never heard of this.
And it can help you to write amazing content, because the content that answers the most number of closely related questions often wins, especially if you have a good foundation of links and authority. So for you, right, your site is very authoritative. If you were to pick something that's closely related to what you typically cover, use that tool and find a list of questions that are all tightly related, and then write an epic piece of content that answers all of those questions. Boom. I would expect to see you at the top of the first page quickly for all of those questions.
Wow, this is really cool. First of all, the homepage is a little scary because there's a dude on there who's kind of looking around randomly. Anyway, then I typed in passive income and I get the who, what, where, why, are, how, kind of questions, and they're just all listed here for me. And if I'm not addressing these things that are relevant, some of them are not relevant to the kind of passive income that I talk about specifically, but there are many here that are. And I think it would be obvious, like if I want to serve an audience who's looking at these questions and trying to find answers, like, I should be creating content about this stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that tip. So that is answerthepublic.com. It actually defaults in UK, at least what it did for me, and then you could switch it to US or wherever you're at. So that's sweet. Answerthepublic.com. Thanks for that tip. Another question to ask you. This is related to some posts that I've been coming out with lately. For those of you listening, you might not realize this, but one every other month, I republish a post from my deep archive, meaning from 2008 to 2010. There's some great content that's been written in the past that just is very difficult to surface, and so we decided to sort of republish these things and update them, of course. But then what that does is it does a couple things. It obviously updates that content so it's more up to date, but it also adds a new sort of publishing date for search engines to see. So I'm curious. I'd love to hear from you if that actually is helpful for not only resurfacing those posts for my users, but also for Google. I've seen some people say that sometimes all you'd have to do is just switch the date that an article was posted, and then it would immediately sort of have a lot more value to SEO in Google, because Google wants to show sort of the latest, most relevant thing. Is that true?
Yeah, so it can work. Whether just changing the date is enough to have an impact is hit and miss. Mm-hmm. There's a portion of Google's algorithm called QDF, so query deserves freshness. And depending on the query, Google decides, hey, is somebody who's searching for this phrase typically looking for brand new content, or do they most often go to and click on older content? And if it's a slice where people consistently are looking for really fresh information, right? Like if you go search Donald Trump, you're going to want whatever the latest news is, and Google knows that. And so they change the ranking stack to reflect that. So if your content is about something that is, it changes often and people are looking for fresh content, then yeah, just changing the date could potentially give you a boost. But you're likely to see a much better boost by updating it and enriching the content with newer information.
Yeah, and speaking of that, that's the thing I've been noticing a lot of people doing. I think Moz talked about this as well. And that is sort of doing your own content audit. I mean, we're talking about SEO auditing here a little bit, but in terms of a content audit, we've talked about this on the podcast before. I had a guy come on. His name's Todd Tressiter in episode 200. And he came on to talk about how he actually deleted and redirected a third of his content from his past to newer stuff that he had, and was able to triple his traffic. And that's because his site became more tight, became more relevant. There was a lot of stuff in the past that he wrote about that just wasn't relevant anymore, and he kind of removed that, or redirected it, or updated those older posts. Is that a practice that's a good thing to do? And if so, how often would you recommend somebody doing that? And do you have any specific tips related to that?
Absolutely. I think that's really valuable, especially over time. Like sites kind of can grow out of control, go from 10 pages to 100 to 1,000 to 10,000. And you have all of this content, and Google's trying to understand, what on your site is most relevant. And so if you know that you have a smaller number of pages that are your most important pages, there's no sense in wasting a lot of internal links and authority on some of that other stuff. Mm-hmm. So doing a content audit and deciding, should I keep this as is? Should I combine it with something else? Should I just delete it? Is it, not worth keeping around? Or should I enhance it? Could I take this piece of content and make it richer? I think that process is really, really valuable. I mean, you could double, triple, quadruple your traffic just by cleaning out some of the mess. I'd recommend doing that. If you're a bigger site, I'd do it twice a year. A small site, maybe once a year or once every 2 years. But using something like Google Analytics, Google Search Console, you can see which of your content is performing best, and then which isn't. And if you have content that performs well and content that doesn't perform well, that's similar, like very similar in topic, redirect the content that's not performing well to the content that is.
Are there any? Okay, first of all, that's fantastic. Sort of confirms and validates what I was taught and what we're doing. In terms of redirecting, I think that word scares a lot of people. They don't know how to do that. What's the easy layman's term way on doing what you just said? How would one actually go about doing that? Or is that something you'd recommend actually having somebody come on board to do for you?
So redirects are pretty simple. Again, if you're in WordPress, which like 20 or 25% of all sites are, there's a post called Quick Page Post Redirect. Sorry, a plugin. And literally you copy and paste a URL into two fields. I want this URL in this field to go to this URL in this field, and hit enter and you're done. So moving one page to another is super simple inside of WordPress.
Oh, that's sweet. I didn't know about that. What was that plugin called again?
Quick Page Post Redirect.
Quick page. Okay, got it. Page post
and then,
redirect. Got it.
Yeah, depending on your platform though. So if you're not on WordPress, if you're on something more complex, like let's say you have a site built on .NET, it's much more complicated, and you're going to want to pull in somebody technical to do it because it requires coding and regex and other unpleasant stuff
like HTA access and all that stuff.
Yeah, so .NET doesn't even run an HT-access file. You have to go in and set up like an ISAPI rewrite filter.
All right, I don't know what language you're speaking, but I don't think
exactly, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Way in over my head, but okay. If so, WordPress. Yeah, most of my listeners are on WordPress. Many of them are not. And definitely, if you are unsure about something and it's not sort of push button easy, I would always recommend getting somebody else who knows what they're doing involved, because sometimes it's just one punctuation that can really screw things up, unfortunately, in this world. Yeah. So cool. That's super helpful. Now, going back to the audit that you performed for me, I would love for you to share with everybody what were some of my biggest mistakes. What were some of the big things that you shared with myself and my team that we could do to improve the ranking on the site, if you remember?
Yeah. So one of the things that stood out was page load speed, right? So looking at the site, if you don't mind me sharing specifics,
do it. We're all about being authentic here. So have at it.
All right. So looking in your Google Analytics data, your average total page load time was almost 13 seconds. So even though the page visually, it's loading fairly fast for a user, there are things on the back end that were causing it to really drag out. And so, looking at various different tools, right? Like some of them showed your page load speed as pretty fast, but when your own analytics data is telling you that it's slow, it's almost certainly slow. And then it's just digging to the bottom of what is causing the slowness. So that was one that stood out. Another for you was crawl errors. So you didn't have a huge number, but they'd been ramping up over time. Mm-hmm. And when Google hits a crawl error on a site, basically they're saying, oh, whoops, this page isn't here, so I'm going to leave the site and come back later. And if you have a lot of those, Google thinks, well, wow, this site has a lot of errors. Maybe it's not such a user-friendly place. And so making sure that Google doesn't. Good. Yeah, exactly, right?
It's a friendly place. Come on, stick around.
And so that was another one. You didn't have too many, like as a percentage of your overall site.
Sure.
But enough that Google would be like, all right, like I'm hitting a fair number of errors here. Maybe this isn't so good.
Okay. Anything else?
Those were a couple that stood out. Let's see. I'm scrolling through the audit right now, looking at stuff. URL redirects. So you had a handful of temporary redirects that needed to be fixed. There were quite a few 301 redirects that were found by crawling your site. So whenever you change a URL, ideally, if you can, you should go back through and update the internal links on your site to point to the final location. Because the more hops Google has to go through, if Google crawls through your site, lands on a page and says, oh, I'm going to follow this link. And it's like, oh, well, that link just went through a redirect. Ooh, and it went through another redirect. Ooh, and it just went through a third redirect, right? Mm-hmm. The more redirects Google hops through, they shave off a little bit of value at each hop. And so making sure that you update your internal linking can also help you to preserve a lot of that internal link value.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not making excuses here. This is just what happens when you've been blogging for 8 years and you kind of just are taking it as you go. It becomes this Frankenstein thing. And, we're at a point now where 8 years later, we're starting to get really serious about, the little details here. And, well, the page load time is not a little detail, but, these kinds of things are really important. So I would encourage everybody to, no matter what level you're at, hopefully sooner than later, do similar things, whether you hire somebody like Sam for an SEO audit, or you kind of check on these things yourself, or have somebody come on and maybe you do something for them to have them do something for you, pro bono, whatever it is. Like, I think, your website is where people come and, where conversions happen and where sales happen. You want to make sure things are working and things are good and you're optimized. So, I would encourage everybody to get started sooner than later on this. And obviously you can check out Sam at voodoomarketing.com, VUDU marketing.com. Really great experience working with him. So anything else stand out, Sam? Any other common mistakes that people make, or advice that you have for people who are kind of just winging it and trying to now get serious about, their SEO and trying to rank for things?
Yeah, I would say one other thing that can be very impactful and that doesn't usually get considered is how you set up your site architecture. So, like what you choose to put in your nav or in your footer, how you're connecting pages across your site, that determines how like links and value flow through your site. And I like to use a farming analogy, right? If you have a big plot of land and lots of crops, it's really important to make sure that the water is getting to all the right places so you don't have dead spots. But it's also really good to make sure you're not accidentally wasting water on an unused field or running down some random ditch. And so making sure that you've laid out all of those rows and connected things together in an efficient way can help the site to rank a lot better. And so where people tend to get into trouble here, if you look at a lot of different sites online, you see pretty consistent bad behavior in internal linking. You'll see a top navigation with dozens or sometimes hundreds of links, right? You click on it and there's a drop down and there's 50 other choices. Mm-hmm. And you'll see a footer with dozens and dozens of links, a lot of them going to, pages that just aren't super important. And that's the equivalent of just spraying your irrigation water everywhere. And if you tighten it up and are very selective about what you include in your navigation and which pages you connect to other pages, it can have a tremendous impact on the overall ability for the site and those key pages to rank well.
Nice. That sounds great. And so how can one determine whether or not a page is important for them to have water going to versus not?
For a lot of people, it's a gut check. I mean, which content you've put the most time and effort into and that answers questions the best. But you can also use data. So if you have an existing site, a number of pages, look inside Google Analytics or Google Search Console and pick, say, the 5 to 15 most important pages, the pages that get the most traffic or the most impressions. And then go through your site and make sure that those are the pages that are in the main navigation. Those are the pages that you're cross-linking to on a regular basis. And then at the same time, if there's anything that's not in that list that you look at it and think, wow, would I really want somebody to land on that page from a search? Mm-hmm. If the answer is no, don't link to it.
Nice. You make it sound so simple, Sam. But, I think one step at a time is another important aspect to this. So pick up some of those tools, research, get in there, definitely get involved with Google Search Console. It's definitely something worth getting into. And so just stay mindful and keep going. So Sam, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom with us and also being honest about the approach for SEO. Obviously there's thousands of people talking about SEO and everybody has a different way of going about it. It's obvious that you're in it for the end user and to please Google too. So I want to thank you again for your time.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
So beyond Voodoo Marketing, VUDUmarketing.com, is there anywhere else people can find you, perhaps connect with you on, say, Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter, Sams_antics.
Nice.
Picked that back when Twitter launched and have never bothered to change it.
You don't have to justify
it. So I respond pretty quick on Twitter. You can ping me through my website. I also have another site, screwthezoo.com. I wrote a book on a whim a couple of years back. I don't blog there too often anymore, but again, if you ping me there, I'll answer.
Awesome. Sam, thank you so much. We appreciate you and all the best.
Thanks, Pat. Cheers.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Sam, I know you listen to the show every once in a while. I appreciate you coming in and sharing your advice with everybody. And yes, SEO changes all the time, but a lot of the things that Sam mentioned are going to be very foundational. I mean, that's where Google is going, right? They want to provide the best results for people. And a lot of these things that used to be done to optimize search engine optimization are just not, you don't want to do them anymore because they are not where things are headed, which is value, quality, uniqueness, relevancy, those kinds of things. So if you want to check out Sam and see what else he's up to and even check out his services, you can go to voodoomarketing.com. That's VUDU marketing.com. You can also check out the links and everything else mentioned here in this episode in the show notes at smartpassiveincome.com/session 261. Now, really quick before you go, I want to mention and thank today's sponsor, which is Edgar. Edgar is a social media scheduling tool that I use to automate and build a library of messages that I can send out to my audience that get seen much more. And that's what social media is all about, right? I mean, being social. And how can you be social if you're not being found anymore? I mean, social media reach is definitely plummeting, and Edgar is a tool that was built specifically to address this issue, and they're just amazing. Laura, the CEO and founder, she and I are good friends, and I'm happy to feature her and her product here on the show. And what's really cool is she's offering an amazing deal just for SPI listeners. So you can get a 2-week free trial of Edgar. I continue to use it myself, both on Twitter and Facebook. You can also connect a number of other social media accounts to it too. You can connect to your Facebook groups to start conversations and have it all be automated. It's awesome. And yes, there are concerns related to automation of social media, but this is an amazing tool because it doesn't make it feel like you're not there anymore. It allows you to start those conversations. It allows you to get more traffic to your website without actually just having it be like a plugin that you put in that puts up every single blog post that you come out with. No, you're actually writing unique stuff, but a lot of times those things you send out don't get seen as much as they should be. So this tool helps you address that problem. And so Laura and the team at meetedgar.com/SPI are offering a 2-week free trial. And that's no credit card required. Like you don't have to enter billing information up front and then have it auto bill you. It's not like that. And it's very easy to set up too. All you have to do is go to meetedgar.com/SPI. Once again, that's meetedgar.com/SPI. Fill out your info there and you'll be all set. Thanks, I appreciate you, and I look forward to serving you next week when I invite an author of a book that I recently read that has to do with building habit-forming products. So imagine you building a product that just internally the user has to keep using it. What would that mean for a membership site or a piece of software or another product that you're creating? It's a lot of value in that episode. I look forward to sharing it with you next week. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show. And again, make sure to check out meetedgar.com/SPI. I appreciate you. Till next week, keep rocking it. Love you guys. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast at www.smartpassiveincome.com.
More people dream about building their own business and being their own boss rather than retiring early. But a majority of them never even take the first steps to register the business. Why? Because starting a business can feel overwhelming. With legal forms, paperwork, finances, it's a lot. And that's where Taylor Brands comes in. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal and business assets separate from day one. And from there, you can get access to everything you need to get off the ground, from legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, our listeners get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. Just head to taylorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Taylor Brands. I get it. You want to grow your business, but selling at scale feels overwhelming. You're drowning in complicated funnels, creating different lead magnets, or constantly posting on social media. And that gets exhausting fast, especially when you're trying to sell to hundreds or thousands of people. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? A score app quiz or assessment asks your audience key questions and gives them instant personalized results based on their answers. Your audience gets to know where they are now and shows them the steps they need to hit their goals. You can set up a quiz in minutes using Score App's templates and have a powerful lead magnet that'll do the selling for you. The best part is your audience actually wants to take this quiz, and you build huge amounts of trust before you even make a single offer. No hard sales, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. Just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI.